Welcome to tutorial part 10. In this video, after I give you the solution from the last homework, we'll be talking about particle effects and how you can use them to improve your game. Now, for the homework solution, there's a lot of ways of doing this. You don't have to do it my way, but... So let's select the cube. And let's open player collision. Let's create a new function, void kill player. And here, instead of destroying the whole object, we'll call the kill player function. And inside we need to write this dot game object dot get component mesh renderer enabled equals false. Let's just try that. You now die. Our mesh renderer disappears. We need also to disable the sphere, so let's go back to the script. Let's add a reference here. Let's say private mesh renderer sphere. Make it serializable so we can get them on the inspector. And now you just drag the sphere and you write down here sphere dot enabled equals false. Let's try that. And our cube disappears, but you can still move around, so we need to fix that. Let's also open our player movement, and in here you write if can move, then we do all this. Let's create a variable here. Let's make it public. Can move equals true. Don't forget the bool. Like so. Now we need a reference from the player collision to our player movement. So let's do that. Serializable field, private, player movement. And now here we just say player movement dot can move equals false. So when we get a collision with an enemy, in this case a sphere, it runs this function. This function deactivates the mesh, our cube mesh, and our sphere mesh. Then it tells our movement script right here that it cannot move, so it doesn't run all this, and we no longer can move. Now on the inspect here, you don't forget to drag our cube to player movement, and if you try that now, so we can catch this. Now let's go against the sphere, and we can no longer move. One last thing we need to do is when we get out of bounds, we also need to disable. So if collision dot transform dot tag equals player, that's if you go to inspector, let's give a tag player, save it. So if we collide with something that has a tag player, which is the case, we say that the collision dot transform dot get component player collision, and we call the kill player. You see that you can't access it because it's private, so let's make it public. Go to player collision and make it public. If you save it and go back, you can see that you now can call the function. Let's also freeze the player so we don't keep falling forever. So collision dot transform dot get component rigid body dot is kinematic equals true. This just goes to our rigid body of the player and makes it kinematic. With this, it means that it can't move, it stays in place. Don't forget to comment the first line, we don't need to destroy it anymore. And here you write else. If it's not a player, then yeah, we can destroy it. Save it, and let's try that. We got destroyed, we don't keep falling, and everything is fine. We just need to see the game over screen, right? So let's open this. We need to call the UI manager game over. We can do that when we kill the player, like so. Let's try that again, and everything should work fine now. And there it is. It worked. So that was the homework. If you couldn't do it, don't worry, just keep practicing it. And there's multiple ways of doing this. So now let's go into our today's tutorial. Today we'll be creating a particle system, so when the player dies we get a cool effect. So let's right click, effects, particle system. Let's name it player death. And let's reset its position. Let's move to it. You can see it in real time here. So let's make it look up. Let's rotate it 90 degrees, minus 90. Let's go to emission. 10 is 5. Let's give it a gravity, let's say 0.8. Maybe less, 0.5. Yeah, 0.5 is fine. Let's enable collision. And let's drag our plane into it. Let's decrease their lifetime to, let's say, maybe 1. Yeah, that looks fine. Let's change the color to red, since it's the color of our cube. Like so. We can make them bounce more or less. Let's say like so. Now down here on render, you can choose a mesh. And let's change the material to the cube material. We also need to decrease the size. So 0.34 looks about right. let's also increase the lifetime, maybe 2. The emission, let's 5. Maybe the bounce a little bit less. And that looks fine. So now let's create a prefab. You already know how to do it. Just drag it to the folder and we have a prefab. Now you can delete it here. And let's open our cube player collision. Let's create a serializable field. Private, game object, dead effect. Now let's drag it there. So prefabs, player dead. There it is. Let's just do one more thing. Select the player dead, expand the particle system, and remove loop. So it just plays once. Now let's go back to the script. Let's say when you get killed, here you just write instantiate the dead effect on the transform.position, which is this current position, the cube position, and its rotation, like so. Now save it, and let's try that out. If you now play, let's kill ourselves. You can see that we spam the particles, but they don't look quite right yet. So let's fix that. Let's select our particle. Down here, the type, make it world. Let's change the duration to 1, or maybe 0.5. Let's try that. Okay, let's just change one more thing. Emission, let's say 20. And the angle, 25 is fine. Let's try that. It isn't that perfect because our particles are colliding with our cube collider, because we just disabled the mesh and we stay with the collider. So let's deactivate also the collider. So here on the kill player, write this.gameObject.getComponent collider enabled equals false. Let's do the same for our sphere. Sphere.gameObject.getComponent collider enabled equals false. And finally, let's make it kinematic. So this game object dot get component rigid body is kinematic not sleeping is kinematic equals true. So now we disable our colliders and we make it kinematic so we don't fall through the floor. If we try that now, our effect will probably look much better. Yeah, there it is, way better. And that's basically it, how we can create a simple particle effect when you die. For homework, I want you to do another effect, so when you collect a coin, in this case it's a capsule. Let's try to find it there. When you get one, you also get an effect. You can play around, like with the values and all that, and try to get something that you like. So give it a shot and I'll see you on the next video.